Thank you very much. I'm sorry again. I'm sorry for being such on a rush to do this. I promise that next time I'll be better prepared. These days I've been just too much stuff to do. Thank you very much for the invitation. Um, uh, um, the Ecoplige, so I will talk about the Ecoplige project, the site, Buraca da Moura. It's one cave that it's been excavated or been excavating in the last years in the scope of this project. And the idea is to, I'm, I work on this region for many years, for 20 years now, and there is very important sites on this area, and at some point we were discussing a bunch of ideas and things and potentialities and things that we have seen and finding in the others that wouldn't appear, and we were not sure how to pull this as a very interesting project. And then it took us a few years, but then we thought that probably the most important thing was to look at them and look at the region, not from the point of view of the site that most usually and many projects are focused on the site, but rather on the way of the where the site is and the settings. So that's why, and we were looking for the region, and we noticed that there was an important aspects that we should take in account. So um, the River Lige Basin, it's right in central Portugal on the coast. If you can see, the red rectangle goes towards the sea, and you can see there is a lighter blue shade. And that's the platform that was almost all of it exposed during periods where there was too much coal, like the last glacial maximum. So everything that we see at the coast today were probably in many periods of the Paleolithic, especially in the colder periods, the cold and dry periods, would be much inland than they are today. Um, Still, so uh, what we saw on this area is that although it was relatively small, it had a lot of settings, different settings that would be important and would work very well as a laboratory for the understanding of many features that we have in the Iberian Peninsula. The River Lige is relatively small. Still, it has everything that we need for the Paleolithic. It's got terraces. It has lagoons, so Pleistocene lagoons. It's got Pleistocene terraces, fluvial terraces. It has um, coastal, sea terraces, marine terraces. It's got rock shelters. It has caves. It has plateaus. It has sinkholes. So everything that we need in every almost any kind of setting that where we found Paleolithic and important Paleolithic finds and discoveries around the world, this territory has them. So we thought it would be relatively easy to work. Plus, it has another thing that it's very important. It's the population. It's very interested on archaeology, and it's very welcoming. So we are always within friends and among family and among friends every time that we go to the field, which is very good for those that do field work, because sometimes some places, some territories are not that friendly, and everything gets much harder. Here we are. We have good sites, we have good settings, we have good food, and we have good friends. So everything is set for work. I choose this image to give you a glimpse about the territory. So as you can see, it's near the coast, but it's got also you can see also here this yellow shade. That's mountains, mountain places. That's where the river springs. And it's important also because, as you can see, and I will show you in the next in this slide, that is, we have high altitude plateaus with long range that we can see from the long range, and then we have these tiny light blue things that we don't almost see it. Sorry, but that corresponds to canyons, and canyons are this kind. I will talk a little bit about them later, and as we go from the spring, so the spring it's right here, so it's near the highest mountain. The river it's huge. So what you'll see here, what you are seeing here, is just the water that it's on the surface, and because it's a limestone territory, the basin itself it's much wider, much bigger because it's inside of the mountain. So you have rivers running inside of the mountain, and then they spring outside. And why they spring? They cut through tectonic flaws and faults and make these canyons a little bit downstream. They make these huge terraces with sometimes 20, 30 meters thick, with a lot of Achillean artifacts, not, not, not fauna yet, but some lagoons with floral remains, important, that I've been looking for, I don't know, 22 years for someone to study them, and they have them in boxes, and I have not found anyone that want to study. I will show probably something a little bit later. And then it goes to the shore, where also in the near the beach and at the beach we have also archaeological sites. So some examples here on the right on the bottom, you'll see it's one cave that we test pit and excavate, and that I'm waiting for Sarah Garces to go and see if she can find the rock art, because I think from those that we know there, this one probably it's one of the best to have rock art. Others have sediment and have deposits. That's this one that you can see here on the top. We also have rock shelters. I will talk a little bit about one of the sites that we excavated as well, also in the canyons. And then in the terraces, we have the Achillean here. Some Mafar students and some students also from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa finding their first hand axe, so they were very excited about it. And then Praia do Pedrógão, from the Emian, the end of the Emian site with the Middle Paleolithic occupations below the dune. The dune. Sometimes we go there, and the what remains from the site it's exposed. The other times, another time that's actually when we went there this time to do the excavation, all the dune was there, so we will have to dig down and remove part of the dune to do the excavation, but it's still there. It's still there, and it's a very rich site. Well, as I was telling you a little bit before, our sites and the sites that we excavated are these three that you see here. They are in canyons, and I brought this image exactly because we have the rivers cutting through. It's not all the rivers are here represented, but you can see how narrow they are. They are very narrow. They are very flat, and they extend towards the mountain. And because of that, and because all of that I showed you before, what we have it's a landscape. It's a relatively short landscape, but that it's a landscape that goes from the shore, wherever it was on the Paleolithic, until the mountains, and then the canyons, these valleys that is very narrow valleys, but because they were narrow, they are always also very sheltered. So they preserve humidity, and they preserve they are sheltered from, they allows us to be sheltered from the from wind.
Uh, I don't know if it's only for me, but I think you are.
No, we lost Telmo, Marta.
Yeah, freezing. We just wait a second. I hope he realized that it's freezing. Otherwise, he's speaking from himself for himself.
I will call him just to be sure.
Thank you, Sarah. He's gone. He will be back. We hope.
Okay, he knows now that he's gone.
Okay. Very well. Hello. Okay.
Tom?
Hello. Hello. So where did I stop?
In the previous one. Not this one, the one before.
Here,
This one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't know what happened. It's one of those days. I'm sorry. And anyway, so these as I was telling you, so these valleys, they cut through the limestone mountains, and this basin connects with others, so it makes quite easy and comfortable and secure and very safe to go from one place to the other, always on a sheltered situation. You have water, as I told you. You have water because you have a lot of springs, and you have water. You have vegetation. With vegetation, you have the animals, and with water, vegetation, and animals, and also with flint, good quality flint, good quality quartzite that it's on pebbles, and the flint it's on nodules inside the limestone. It's a very good place to stay. So it's not surprising that we have so many occupations, and almost every cave, almost every rock shelter, we found human occupations. And despite that it's been relatively short, we go to the coast. We have the coastal environment. So the coast, really coastal, the beach. Then you have with rocks in one places and sand in the other places. So with different resources. And then we have terraces, open areas, open air areas, wide open. And then you go to the canyons and these narrow valleys. And as we go from flatlands to higher lands, and you connect with the others. So we have almost every landscape that you know from the Iberian Peninsula, except at very, very high altitudes, which makes to change to change environments, small kind of vegetation, some kind of landscape from just a few dozen kilometers. So it's interesting because you can reach a great variety of resources with a very short range. For those that may not know or never seen canyons, it's basic a tectonic fault that and the river was running on the top, so over here on the top, and at some point the water fit on that fault and start excavating the rock and opening. And because you have layers, so you have these walls, and you have the water running here, and you have these platforms. In these walls, what happens is that because there's a different kind of limestone, some are harder and others are softer, and because the water sometimes the river was fitting in the rock, and the other times it was spreading wider. It excavated the sides of the canyon, so it opened the long protected places that makes a rock shelter. In other cases, you have small streams that are coming out from these walls and opening a hole and a gallery inside of the rock. That at some point, because of gravity and the water works, at some point there was some place that the water is not. It's making the water not running through that hole, but from another, so that hole gets exposed, open, empty, and people were there to occupy. So that's how, for a very brief explanation, how we have rock shelters and we have caves on this kind of valleys. And because it's limestone, organic material preserves very well, so it's usually places where we got very rich deposits that allows us to reconstruct the landscape. So here is a schematic image of one of the sites that was a post rock shelter. It's another site that we excavate. In this case, in the rock shelter, this case was interesting because here, right on the top, we had the limestone with nodules of flint, and then we have some deposits, some rock shelters that were excavated. So this is one of the sides of the river, and here we have what remains from a Shaldmeaden, so from dated from 9.2 thousand years ago, Shaldmeaden, and it was partially destroyed, and it was covering this deposit over here that it represents, or it contains the remains of two Solutrean occupations, one from 19.5 and another one from 18.5. In both cases, what we saw in the Solutrean was that they were exploiting the they were exploiting the flint. We have many arrow points, fragments of arrow points. We have sketches of arrow points. We have a lot of artifacts that represent damaged artifacts, or that they represent the preparation of cores, blades. They are within the chaîne opératoire of the cores, but we don't have the big blades. We don't have the perfect Solutrean points. What we have is broken Solutrean points and Parpaillot points, and we have all that was discarded, and everything that it's was to prepare those points and to make the cores for blades, and not having the blades. So our interpretation, and we have very little fauna, although the deposit allows it. So what our interpretation about the site in this case was that was the place where people were exploiting this nodule of flint that still very hardly to find, but sometimes they are still here attached to the rock. And it's actually, we made the XRF analysis on this flint, and we found out that the variety that we have here fit on the preparation material are fit this better than they fit on the other sources of flint on this valley and from the region around. The site is very disturbed by roots, but still we collect several hundreds of artifacts that will allow us to have a very good idea about the site. Concerning our field work and the way we do the excavation, we basically piece plot everything. So we bring this total station. Now we have another one, but we go to the field, we take put the total station. We have all the area divided on squares, 1 by 1 squares, and then we use the bucket method. So we divided each square in quadrants of 50 by 50 centimeters, and then we fill them with we fill buckets. While we excavate, we fill buckets of 10 liters. And those buckets are then brought to this lab, our field lab, where we perform the flotation of all the sediment to collect charcoal and micro mammals, microfauna, and stuff like that, small chips, which gives us. So this method is very time consuming, but gives us very good results. Here you can see the piece plotting of the entire assemblage, and here in the computer you will see how the total station works. So the total station linked to the computer, and we organize everything from here. So this is the idea about the post-rock shelter. But when we were excavating post-rock shelter, there was one colleague, and she's the director of the museum of Leiria, and she was always saying, "No, you should go to the other place. To the other place. You have to go there. We have to go there. We have to go there." And I said, you've been there, other guys have been there, no one did anything, so why should I spend my time doing anything? Oh, but there was a lot of vegetation, we couldn't get in, so no one knows really what's there, so you should go and should try. And that's what we did. So we in 2016 we start excavating Abrigo de Buraca da Moura. We thought that would be nothing over there, and today we have 11 square meters excavated, and from those 11 square meters we have you can see three main deposits. We have a necropolis from the Neolithic and Chalcolithic with radiometric radiocarbon dates. We have 8 radiocarbon dates. We have already the DNA and the isotope analysis that we expect to be published very, very soon. And from those, the amount of bone human bones that we have and teeth overpassed the 5,000. So in 11 square meters and 40 centimeters thick, we have basically around a little bit more than 5,000 human bones, all very small, all teeth, the human tooth, phalanges, so small bones, which makes us believe that it's very traditional in this region. Every cave that we go, there's a Neolithic, Chalcolithic necropolis. Sometimes you have big bones, sometimes you have the complete person, and in other cases you have these small ones. And what's the usual the interpretation is that people would go there, would put the dead person, and then it will be lose the flesh. And when it was decomposed, the big bones like the skull, the thorax, the pelvis, and the big bones from the arms and legs would be transported elsewhere. On this same cliff, 20 meters in front and on a slope, there's the remain of this of another section of this cave that was completely destroyed for a traditional quarry many years ago. Over there, what we found was a piece of a skull and a piece half of a femur, human femur. So although it's only two bones, they are completely different from the 5,000 that we have here, and this makes us make the interpretation about people being defleshing. On the first step would be defleshing the dead on this cave, and then transporting everything to the other one. This gets a little. We didn't excavate the other place yet. For the logistical situation, it's we need to make a big effort there. But because of these bones and because of the naming of the valley, because the valley has one name, but in this particular section, it's called the Moira Valley. So in Portugal, when we get the Moira, so the Moira, it's about the Moors. The Moors is about the Islamic occupation, and then traditionally, what happened is that people have this idea that it's everything that it's old is from the Moors. So it could be Roman, it could be Paleolithic, it could be Neolithic. It's far behind the time that they can measure. So it's from the Moors. It's something very old that was there before in a different culture. So every time that we have this name or something related with this name, we know that we probably have something prehistoric. And when we have caves, you are most sure that we'll have Neolithic or Chalcolithic occupation. So that's exactly what happens here. So what we believe is that because this cave that we are excavating don't have really big evidence about being trampled by people consistently and in big amounts, but the other one has the naming of the valley comes from the cave that it's below the one from where we took that piece of the skull and from the femur. After that, we have one. Let me keep here. We have a layer right below with ash, some shell, some lithics that we thought that would be the contact between the necropolises and Paleolithic and the Upper Paleolithic, but the shells were a little bit weird. We were not sure about what it was. There was a lot of ash and charcoal. We often in necropolises we have this situation where, and it's usually interpreted as being used or representing the purification of the cave before the burials being made. So that was our interpretation until last year when we got the radiocarbon dates. And the radiocarbon dates, what they show us is that we have a remnant of the epipaleolithic occupation, although it's very disturbed by the Neolithic necropolises and also from burrows, because we have badgers that are occupying the top of the site, and they disturb. So the part of the necropolis is very disturbed. Below it, then we have something that basically that we like more. We have a sequence, so far Upper Paleolithic sequence that goes from the Upper Solutrean until the Late Gravettian. For you to have an idea, that date that you are seeing here, this position over here, that gives us a date around 27.5 thousand, more or less. It's right here. So it's more or less this height. We at some point we broke the rock to see how much it go. And this year, with the help of the crew from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa and from Mafar, we digged a lot. This is us taking. This is Carlos, a very good friend and colleague, taking micromorphology samples, and we are way below this occupation. It's a narrow place. We were confused. We piece plot everything, but we were a little bit confused until this year to understand exactly the stratigraphy and what was happening. And now we understand. What we have, it's a cave that it was opened by water. So you can see it's very, very narrow. So the water went out, shaped the cave, and then when it was not running water from here anymore, it was filled in with sediment. And although everyone likes the Middle Paleolithic, and the crew, people from the crew really aims for the Middle Paleolithic, this is quite important because this, from around this height, it's where we are taking the 27.5 thousand years old date. And this is much where Carlos is, where he has his feet. It's much, much below. And still we are in the Upper Paleolithic. And this is important because one of the questions that we have in Portugal is the transition from the Middle Paleolithic to the Upper Paleolithic. So there is a lot of information that converge on the idea that this was probably one of the last places where Neanderthal survived. But it's not clear when the Upper Paleolithic appeared. And one of the problems that we have is that most of the sites, they have an erosive contact between the top of the Middle Paleolithic and the bottom of the Upper Paleolithic. So we change in many places, in many sites, from like 35,000 or 45,000 that will be clearly Middle Paleolithic with Levallois cores and Levallois flakes and all the things that we know that it's from the Mousterian, and then we jump to somewhere in the middle Gravatian. So you know that there's an erosive moment there, and the geoarchaeologist shows us that. And 14 years ago, Thierry Aubry made this. It's a French researcher that worked in Portugal for many, many years, and they excavated a lot of caves. He's for many years in Foscoa, and he put this paper where he said, well, we will not solve this problem until we go to find sites that, instead of the sediment was washed out, are those that where the sediment was washed in. So all those that the sediment will be washed in, that's where we were going to find the evidence from this transition. So that's why although everyone on the crew aims for the Middle Paleolithic, we are very excited to have this continuous record for the Upper Paleolithic. Furthermore, we don't have dates yet, but this is a news flash here for the Mafar crew. In the end of the last year, while one of our colleagues were going through the fauna, we found a tooth that after the people from the zooarchaeology and anthropology looking at it through the reference collection, we found out it was human, and it's within the Paleolithic deposit. This year we found a couple more of bones and teeth on the Paleolithic deposit. So we are dealing with this remains because it will be important. Nearby, it's just one valley below. We have that amazing site that it's Abrigo do Lagar Velho, where years ago, so 2 decades ago, was found a very well preserved skeleton, but DNA was never done. It's kind of hard to reach and to study the assemblage. So we know that this territory was important, or the Iberia was important to create, it was where people gathered during, for instance, the LGM, and from where people reoccupied places like Western Europe. We know that. And we know that some of those people were from southern Spain, where we have a LGM cluster, and from northern Spain, where there's another cluster. And central Western Iberia, here, the Portuguese Extremadura, where we have all these caves with all this sediment, we have a cluster of sites, but we don't have any information about the DNA and about this population. So that's why we're taking a little bit longer than we would like, but we are trying to establish the best data possible to assemble the information, inclusive genetic information about this population. So this would be probably a nice breakthrough that we'll have in the next years. Some artifacts. On the top left corner, we have the material from the necropolis, including the skull cap and the femur fragment from that cave below, and then many artifacts with Beckett bladelets, burins, all the kind of artifacts that it's usual to have on this chronology. We had one student from Mafara, Alexandre Payá, that made this master on the fauna remains here, a bone with fragments of like human processing. This is results from his thesis that we expect to also have published this year. What we have, it's basically the same fauna that it's usually to find everywhere. So a lot of rabbits and hare, boars, red deer, and horse. So all the kinds of animals that usually we found everywhere. Important, it's the idea. It's we have a lot of fragments that it's impossible to classify, but they from different sizes of animals, which make us very preliminary to assume that's the idea from with which we are working now, that this site during the Paleolithic may have been a temporary place, a temporary shelter, exactly on the scope of mobility from the coast to inland. So we feel that the site is presently at 22 kilometers from the coast. During this period would be much farther inland, so it would work. It's on the range of going somewhere, spend the night, and moving forward for the next day, and then return and stopping on that same place. Everything that we have, all the dates that we have, fit on mostly the most important climatic crisis, although we have here a spot that we hope to fill in this year with the new dates that we couldn't date because it's the samples, all the samples that we sent 3 samples, all of them had low collagen. We don't understand yet if it's taphonomic problem or exactly it has to be taphonomic. But if it's localized in the place from where we took the samples, or if it's widespread across the entire assemblage, that's something that we need to figure out. But it's very interesting. We have it's easy to get dates before, it's easy to get dates after. Here we are having some problems, what we think it's basically every time here in this region where we have these moments of where the environment gets very cold, but you have this we have these places, very small localized places where you can actually live, and it's much more comfortable. It's something that actually happens today. We could be working on a summer day and it's very warm on the plateau, and then you get in the valleys and you have to put a coat because it's very cold. This and other features that we see also in the artifacts make us believe that there will be some kind of thresholds, or we may find some thresholds from where things change. And if we do that, and if we narrow those thresholds and all those features with a good batch of dates, we will be able to identify with more precision, like it happens in other places in Spain, the moments of changes. Because we know that traditionally what people tend to be stable on their way of doing things until they really need to change, and when they change very abruptly. At this point, what we have, those moments of change are not so accurate and so precise as we would like. So we believe that with sites like this, we'll be able to narrow those events. And basically, it's this that we have actually in the plateaus. We have some sites, and the sites that we have in the plateaus and the sites that we have in the caves and the rock shelters inside of the valleys, they are completely different. So when you have an occupation or moments of occupation inside of the valleys, we don't have them on the plateaus, and vice versa. So our model at this point, it's this: that's when you get colder conditions, you get less vegetation. The canyons, as I explained right in the beginning, are more flourish because they have more water. So there is more better conditions, although makes the territory very patchy. So with conditions very well localized in some places, and then there is the lack of those good conditions all around, and people to be more comfortable and people to live better will probably are moving inside of these canyons. And that's why we don't have any occupation on the plateaus during these moments. When the conditions get warmer, you get more vegetation, you get more water. If you get more water, you get more vegetation outside of the canyons, and then you get all around the canyons a more flourish landscape. So more flourish, more vegetation, more animals, and the territory gets more homogeneous, and people move away from these canyons and start occupying again the plateau. When this follows the cycle of the environment. Here is the Binford logistical system and the foraged system that we may apply here for the Solutrean and for the Gravatian. That's something that we need someone to do, so it's a good eventually something that someone can do in the for the masters. We have many aspects that can be investigated to understand if the things and the phenomena that we are seeing and the patterns that we are seeing are related to behavior, are related with site formation processes, including taphonomy. And if we can confirm this, great. We'll probably it will be one of these two. If not, then we need to refine our models. And again, it's opportunities for investigation in the scope of the masters. Here to finish, an image of several colleagues and students that were from Mafar. I'm not finding two people that were there, and I don't have pictures of them. I need to search better. But in the last years, you have Professor Sara over here, you have Felix, and you have many colleagues that have been there from Mafar. So if any of you are interested to come and to excavate, if any of you think that the site and the context and the problematics and the materials would be interesting for you to study, just send an email. I'll be more than happy to receive you. And just feel free to contact me. And that's all.